As the 90s turned into the 2000s, brands and designers wanted models to be clothes hangers in order to let the far less outrageous clothes of the time shine. If the 90s were an era of excess, the early noughties were an era of subtlety and simplicity. By the time the 2000s arrived, things were changing in men's fashion, and along with it, what was considered the ideal male form. And the big name driving this was no longer Bruce Weber, with his pictures of impossibly buffed males, but Paris-based men's designer Hedi Slimane.
I love Hedi so much. He's just been a huge inspiration to so many artists all over the world. Well, I'm a big fan of Hedi Slimane.
Hedi has certainly created his own style, and I love it. I don't wear it myself because I'm too big. I think he's so clever, but he's probably the most inventive men's designer in the world.
When the whole early 2000s, the silhouette shifted from baggy to tight, I remember that very, very well because that's when I first started getting into fashion, and I actually went to Hedi's show in Paris, and it was very shocking to see sort of like the rock kids on this, that you'd see in a concert in full Saint Laurent outfit, and it was a shock. But also at that time, in Paris there was lots of interesting movement. Like Raf Simons were doing that kind of casting, and they were doing completely different things, but they had this like new way of fashion.
Hedi Slimane was born on July 5th, 1968, the son of a Tunisian father and Italian mother. He was raised in the pleasant but unremarkable suburbs of Paris. With a name directly lifted from the traditional Hedi and the gradual emergence of his svelte frame and pronounced, almost feminine facial features, Slimane always expected his perception of genders would be slightly out of focus.
It's all a game, and I think that's the way fashion should be for men. I think they take it so seriously because they think the meaning to anything, that if you wear this and that, you look like you're gay, or if you do this or that. It's really totally... I find it totally retarded, that way of thinking.
Hedi Slimane is a creature entirely unto himself, a force majeure of fashion whose fascination with rock and roll iconography permanently shifted menswear, and with it, the cultural perception of what an ideal man could be.
Yeah, no, but that was a factor, because that's when it wasn't even so much the suit as much as the style of the kid that he was discovering. The image of the model that he wanted to be representing the brand was different. So when Hedi did his own line separately before, he went to Saint Laurent, say. Someone like Karl Lagerfeld adapted real quick, lost a lot of weight, stayed skinny because he wanted to get into Hedi Slimane's, clothing. But the truth of it is, yes, at some point, it was more the idea that the male model was beginning to change. The male model had begun to change. The idea of the male model became a leaner guy, someone who wasn't necessarily a boy next door per se, but he was more the boy next door. He wasn't that handsome guy that you go, ooh, he's beautiful. No, he became an off-breed of something. So it was like the man that really, when you said the male model, had just begun to just dissipate. And now just the boy model had replaced him.
In the 2000s, there was no single person who was more important in men's fashion. Hedi rocked the fashion world, bringing his obsession with music culture and pop icons into a new wave of designs that crossed gender lines, redefined the waist, and placed the shoulder pads back on top. His love for androgyny led to an influx of a new menswear sensibility. His models were all unknowns, and their idealized boyishness was a deliberately anonymous affront to the male supermodel status quo. You couldn't put a name to a single one of these pubescent faces. They appeared as though all from the same tribe, slender, long-haired, and raffish. Hedi reinvented men's style, and the era of the skinny suit and tie was born.
sort of the whole idea of how we viewed men changed. It went from what Bruce had been doing, which started off as athletic and then became actually almost more bodybuilding, but more toned down. The aesthetic changed. The pendulum swings with equal and opposite force. So it had to go from what Bruce was doing to a whole other aesthetic, which was this very sort of rock and roll boy, which at the time also worked with the waif, which was what the women's models came with Kate Moss, which was girls who were much thinner, much tinier. Kate was, 5, just hitting 5'7".
Slimane was, and still is, a true artisan, uncompromising to his vision, which has been at the heart of his tumultuous ride, the extreme highs and lows of his career, rebranding the house of Yves Saint Laurent. To his latest chapter at Celine, Slimane continues to push buttons and boundaries in pursuit of the great design.
What Hedi did completely changed everyone's wardrobe. Until today, and I love that he always takes inspiration from the street, for the street, and he was kind of one of the first fashion person that I met in Paris, and then later we started collaborating when he became a photographer, and I was styling fashion stories with him. And he was always so encouraging for me to do my own thing. He's like, he was giving me advice and where to go. And I still remember we did so many incredible photo shoots together. And we went to Japan and LA. And I learned a lot from him.
His work is, for my standard, in the men's design world, the best of the moment because it is the most right for the moment.
Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess.
His vision is definitely different than everyone else's. It's just very heady. It's flawless. I find his work flawless.
Slimane distinguished himself from other designers for his penchant of casting musicians, unknowns and non-professionals in his shows. Notably absent were the Schenkenbergs, the Vandaloos and the Tyson Beckfords.
It's a description of a character, I think.
Hedi would often draft band members to represent his designs, but otherwise scour the streets looking for just the right personality to mesh with the collection, a process he refers to as boy safari. Like every other element of his creative process, he was reluctant to define the essence of his casting.
I don't like to define things. This is same with menswear for me. I don't like to define. I like that it's very open.
From Black Tie in 2001 through to Celine in 2020, Hedi has been one of the most influential forces in defining the evolution of ideal masculinity. While male supermodels once used their status to turn themselves into celebrities,
Thank you. Tyson Beckford, hey, gotta sign my calendar,
brands and magazines in the 2000s millennium started looking to use celebrities' existing fame to draw attention to their brands and clothes. How the tables had turned. Justin Bieber replaced Marcus Schenkenberg in those Calvin Klein campaigns. Ryan Reynolds and Theo James replaced Mark Vanderloo in those Hugo Boss ads. Technology was changing the culture faster than most of the established modelling world could adapt. And the rise of social media provided yet another route to modelling success. Take Cameron Dallas, who started out as a YouTuber and Vine star. He went on to star for Calvin Klein and has also landed a Teen Vogue cover. No question, the 1990s saw the birth of the male supermodel phenomenon. It was a golden time for the Adonis-like male models, with their impossibly buffed, athletic male physiques. And by the time the 2000s arrived, things were changing in men's fashion, and along with it, what was considered the ideal male form. Bruce's buff was out, and Eddie's androgynous was in.
In the 90s,